Jeremy, good of you to come in, and thanks for allowing me to put you in the spotlight.
Ashraf, thank you very much. It's my privilege to be with you.
But in fact, you're out of the spotlight now. Is that right?
I want to retire the word retirement. You
want to retire retirement. Okay.
Look, when you think that sort of less than 5% probably of the population can afford to retire, and when you think that in some companies retirement is 58 or 60 or 65, I totally disagree with that. And people are very conscious of finance. And Warren Buffett, now he's 84, and I think especially in a country like South Africa where there's a shortage of skills, etc., people need to keep going, and whether it's mentoring or counselling, yes, they might throttle back a bit, but no, I'm still spending time at Interbrand, I'm still advising there, I'm still involved in things, and I'm getting involved in other things as well. I'm not ready to retire. Interbrand started in South Africa, and I started it in Africa back in 92, 93 I think it was, when I came back from London, and we grew the group. And over the years now we have a presence in Lagos and in Nairobi, and we're working sort of South Sahara. Some people will know that Interbrand is part of the Omnicom group, so it's got, I don't know, 35 offices around the world. So we're the African, or we were the African. The last couple of years I was Group Executive Chairman, that was my title. Through age, you become more experienced and you can become more focused and more effective. You're not chasing everything that moves. Certainly when you're running a business, and I've done that for many, many, many years, you're chasing absolutely everything. And today it really is 24/7 because of computers and cell phones, etc., etc. Whereas at least in the old days you worked perhaps from 8 to 6 or 7, Monday to Friday. Well, now, no. And when you're part of an international group, you have the time zones and you have things like that.
Absolutely.
And this is where you really are on call all the time. When you actually look back over the years, sometimes it's a bit of a shock to see what one has achieved. Now, I think a lot of people think of me helping design the Nedbank logo. Well, that was back in 1974. You look at the Springbok, and that was 1995, 96. And so perhaps starting life as a designer, moving on to be more of a brander and a marketer, you sometimes get judged as your legacy by those tangible things. Now, SA Breweries having the beer mug for many, many years, I remember creating that.
Can a brand change its brand?
Usually the visual, the answer is for the most part no. If it's in disgrace, if it's a bad brand, if it hasn't got traction, yes, perhaps. But for the most part, you don't change the brand. What you do is change the marketing and the advertising around that logo, because that logo is the stake in the ground. That's the visual memory of the whole thing. You can create new brands, but then you have to be patient. They're going to take time. Now, the fastest growing brands and the youngest brands are the technology brands. Luxury brands tend to think of as heritage, and that's something that you can't create instantly overnight, although that's where the great Dr. Rupert was a past master at putting heritage into a lot of his brands. He'd often use coats of arms and things like that. So even though he only created them in 1950, you'd think perhaps it was something that was much, much older. I think Nando's is 29 years old this year and is operating in over 30 countries. And this is where they've taken great care to take the essence, the DNA of the Nando's brand, but then adapt it to local needs. And that's where it's gained traction. Now, I believe in the UK they sell more sauces and things out of the supermarkets than they actually sell the chicken. That doesn't matter. The two parts of the brand relate to each other, and now of course it's going very well in the States. And that's very interesting because in the States at the moment, people like McDonald's are actually having a tough time. In the past, we were designers, we created lots of logos, and sometimes very quickly. But it's amazing how when you look around, a lot of those logos still exist. But today we talk about the whole world of branding. So it's much more than just the visual.
So when we say brand is not a logo, then a brand is what?
A brand is a total experience. This is what we say. You can say a brand is a promise made, a promise kept. And this is where I find the world of branding and design so exciting, so stimulating. I wish I was a hell of a lot younger because there's so much going on. And look, smartphones we've only had for the last 10, 11 years. And the way the world is changing and evolving, and you've got to keep your finger on the pulse. You've got to stay relevant. And that's almost my mantra. You've got to stay relevant.